Hi everyone, it's Emma here, and today I am answering the question, what is the main cause of diarrhea? So I'm just going to jump straight into some of the common underlying causes, and then run through some of the solutions depending on the likely cause. So first of all, we have digestive insufficiency. So I think this is often one of the main causes of loose bowels if this is a bit of a long-term kind of persistent problem. So if it's kind of ongoing and these looser bowel movements are quite common for you, then it's quite often the case that digestive insufficiency could be underlying. So when I talk about digestive insufficiency, I'm quite often talking about the stomach and having too little stomach acid. So we really need our stomach acid to break down our food properly in order for that food to then travel into the small and large intestine in the right states in order to be absorbed. So what happens is if your stomach acid isn't breaking down your food properly, then these larger particles of food can travel into the large intestine, and these are somewhat seen as foreign. So although they come from food, they aren't in the nice form, the kind of simplest units that your body is able to use. So that if this is the case, your large intestine, where usually water would be retained, quite often more water is flooded into the large intestine to take these foreign particles away, and that's when we could become, end up going to the toilet more frequently. Remember, there are certain medications that could potentially make this state worse, such as your PPIs or your acid-reducing medications, and that's especially if these are used long-term without reviews. Another point is this state of digestive insufficiency is quite often an underlying driving factor when it comes to food intolerances, so such as your lactose intolerance or your gluten intolerance, because these specific particles of food, lactose in your dairy products or gluten in your wheat and rye and things, these aren't being broken down properly. So just in terms of food intolerance or sensitivities, but food allergies are quite separate to that. So what can be done to help if this state is likely? This is where your digestive bitters come in. So having a nice digestive bitters complex, just that digestive taste in the mouth helps to, if you taste it in your mouth, helps to stimulate the production of stomach acid in the stomach. So this can be a nice way to add this to your diet, either through your herbal bitter herbs in their whole form or a tincture, for example. Number 2, another common cause of diarrhea can be a bug, so a bowel infection, for example. So gastroenteritis is a common state of infection affecting the gut, and this can actually be caused by different viruses or bacteria. So you have common viruses such as the norovirus, which traditionally cause stomach upset, or bacteria such as salmonella, which is usually involved in food poisoning, for example. So these bacteria or viral infections can cause quite acute diarrhea that usually lasts for a few days or a week or so. So that's more your acute diarrhea states. Although there are more generic infections that can also give rise to diarrhea, so your influenza, your flu viruses, for example, and also different colds as well, such as your coronaviruses, for example. Sometimes diarrhea could be a side effect of some of these. So as I say, usually these symptoms tend to be a little bit more short-lived, but as always, if your symptoms persist or are quite severe, then we would always say to go to your doctor. If it is a bowel infection that you have, sometimes the silicone gel can be a nice one just to help manage that and counter some of the symptoms of diarrhea. Number 3 on my list is stress. So perhaps this is a little bit less known, but stress can also contribute to looser bowels and kind of a diarrhea type state. Again, this can be acute or chronic depending on the situation. So acute stress could be something like a big event that you're worried about, a presentation, public speaking, something like that, and you think, oh wait a minute, I'm running to the toilet a bit more often than usual. This is really interesting because it's a bit of a survival technique for your body. Going back to traditional times when stress was quite often a life or death situation, your body needed to do everything in its power to prepare you for the worst case scenario. So quite often your body would try and clear you out, so make you go to the toilet, so that your digestive system isn't a focus and you can instead focus on your heart, your lungs, your muscles and things that would really need to save your life. So your digestion then isn't a priority. Nowadays, chronic stress is quite often more common, so that's ongoing states of stress, and unfortunately when this stress, the effects of this stress on digestion longer term can actually somewhat start to shut down your digestive system, and that goes back to the gastric insufficiency. So chronic stress can have quite a direct effect on your stomach acid levels and reduce them quite significantly, which then goes on to have the problems that we mentioned above. So if stress is likely to be one of the main underlying causes, then we would hope to target that in order to help. So that might be where something like your Passiflora tablets come in, just for some nervous system support and to help counter the effects of any additional stress. Number 4, we have an imbalance in gut bacteria. So again, this can go part and parcel with some of the other areas that we've mentioned. The digestive insufficiency can give rise to imbalance if those bigger particles of food are travelling in. The bugs potentially could throw off your balance of bacteria for a bit longer, even beyond that initial infection. And stress as a result of the digestive insufficiency could potentially affect your balance of gut bacteria. So this involves a state of dysbiosis, and this can contribute to changes in bowel habits such as your diarrhoea. So again, how can we approach this if we suspect we've got an imbalance in gut bacteria? Again, you're really looking to look at the primary underlying causes. So the digestive insufficiency, the stress, perhaps trying to manage any sources of stress that you have control over. And then we have more direct routes of action. We have prebiotics such as your Mulcasan, which helps to support the internal environment that these gut bacteria survive. Or we have probiotics, especially if you've been on antibiotics in the past for an infection or something else, then these probiotics help to really drill down and support that balance of bacteria a little bit more specifically. Number 5 on the list is IBS. So what I would urge you to remember with IBS is that it's really individual in terms of the symptoms and the causes, and therefore how we would approach the treatment as well. But diarrhoea can quite often be a symptom of IBS. It is quite common, but again, it would be important just to try and drill down further and consider some of the likely causes of those. Again, they're similar as well when it comes to IBS. Some of the underlying causes could be the digestive insufficiency, the stress, or an imbalance in gut bacteria could also be contributing. So with IBS, it's really dependent on your symptoms as to what can help. But again, silicone gel can often be quite useful. It is licensed for the symptoms of IBS, and it can be especially useful if there is an imbalance of gut bacteria, for example. So quite often that can be helpful, but as always, it's just trying to decipher your own likely underlying causes. Last on my list, I have constipation. So this might be a little bit unknown to some people, but especially if you have alternating bouts of both constipation and diarrhoea, the constipation is actually likely to be the underlying cause. So if you're quite constipated, if your bowel is quite bunged up, after some time we might get this kind of overflow state, and that can contribute to your diarrhoea. So as I say, one of the telltale signs would be if you have alternating bouts of constipation and diarrhoea, and then we would be looking to manage the constipation, which in turn would then help to manage the diarrhoea, hopefully. So in terms of managing the constipation, that could be a whole new blog in itself. So what I'll do is I'll just post a link in the comments to a webpage, to one of our blogs on this topic if you need any more information on that. So that's about it for me on that topic. As always, please do comment below or ask any questions, and please do subscribe to our Avogo YouTube channel and also hit the bell icon where you will be notified of any future videos. Thanks, take care and speak soon.